For decades, Robert Redford captivated audiences with his charm, talent, and a life seemingly made for the silver screen. But behind the iconic roles and red carpet appearances lay a deeply personal story of love and heartbreak that he kept hidden. From a whirlwind Hollywood romance to private moments that shaped his soul, Redford has remained tight-lipped about the one woman who left an indelible mark on his heart until now. At 88, the legendary actor has finally opened up about the greatest love of his life. Who was she? And why did he hold on to this secret for so long? You probably know Robert Redford as one of the greatest actors of all time, right? That golden-haired guy with a smile that lit up the screen in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or the charming lead in The Way We Were with Barbra Streisand. But long before Hollywood got its hands on him, Robert was just a regular kid growing up in a working-class family in Santa Monica, California. His dad was an accountant. His mom kept the household running, and they lived a modest life in Van Nuys. It wasn't the kind of start you'd expect for someone who'd eventually be rubbing elbows with the biggest stars in the world. From a young age, Robert was different. He loved art, sports, and the outdoors more than school. He called himself a bad student because he couldn't focus in class, but boy, he could focus on the tennis court or with a paintbrush in his hand. He even got to warm up tennis legend Pancho Gonzalez at the Los Angeles Tennis Club. Can you imagine? But school wasn't his thing, and he struggled. When he got to the University of Colorado, things took a bad turn. He started drinking heavily, lost his scholarship, and eventually got kicked out. That could have been the end of his story, but for Robert, it was just the beginning. After that, he drifted through Europe, soaking up life in places like France, Spain, and Italy. He lived simply, sketching, painting, and figuring out who he wanted to be. It was during this time that the seed of acting was planted. By the time he returned to the States, he was ready to try something new. He moved to New York, studied painting at Pratt Institute, and then gave acting a shot at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. He wasn't an instant success, no big breaks right away, but he stuck with it, taking small roles on stage and television. Now, let me tell you about the love story that shaped so much of Robert's life. It was the late 1950s when he met Lola Van Wagenen. She was everything Robert wasn't, calm, grounded, and rooted in her Mormon faith. She came from Provo, Utah, a world away from Robert's California upbringing. Still, they clicked. She saw something in him, and he saw something in her. Their connection was so strong that they eloped in 1958, defying her parents' wishes. Think about it. A young couple, barely more than kids, running off to get married because they couldn't stand to be apart. It's the stuff of romance novels. But life wasn't easy for them in the beginning. Robert was still trying to make it as an actor, and money was tight. They lived in small apartments and scraped by on whatever work he could find. Then, tragedy struck. Their first child, Scott, died of sudden infant death syndrome. It was devastating. The kind of loss that could break anyone, but it brought them closer in some ways. Lola's strength was a rock for Robert during that time. He later said she was the love of his life, and you can see why. She stood by him through heartbreak and uncertainty, always believing he'd make it. As Robert's career took off, things got busier and more complicated. His breakout role came in the Broadway production of Barefoot in the Park in 1963, where he played a newlywed opposite Elizabeth Ashley. Audiences loved him, and Hollywood started paying attention. Soon, he was on TV shows like The Twilight Zone and Perry Mason before landing his first big film roles. By the late 60s, he was a full-blown movie star. You've probably seen him in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid with Paul Newman, right? Their chemistry was electric, and the movie was a smash hit. Suddenly, Robert wasn't just an actor. He was a heartthrob, a household name. But fame comes at a cost, doesn't it? Robert was working all the time, often on location for months. Meanwhile, Lola was at home raising their 3 children, Shauna, David, and Amy. The pressure of balancing his skyrocketing career with family life started to wear on their relationship. Robert has admitted in later years that he regrets not putting his family first more often. He was ambitious, driven, and maybe a little too focused on making a name for himself. But back then, it was hard to see another way. Even as their marriage struggled, they shared some beautiful moments. Lola wasn't just his wife. She was his sounding board, his confidant. She supported his decision to start the Sundance Film Festival, which became a game changer for independent filmmakers. It was a passion project for Robert, something that reflected his belief in taking risks and supporting new voices in cinema. Without Lola's encouragement, who knows if Sundance would have ever happened. But by the mid-1980s, the cracks in their relationship were too big to ignore. They decided to divorce in 1985 after 27 years of marriage. It wasn't a bitter breakup. They remained friends and continued to co-parent their kids. Still, it was the end of an era. Robert later described Lola as the love of his life, a sentiment that speaks volumes about the depth of their bond. Even though they couldn't make their marriage work, she left an indelible mark on him. After Robert and Lola parted ways, his life shifted in big ways, both personally and professionally. Losing that steady anchor of his marriage was tough, no doubt about it, but Robert didn't let the heartbreak stop him. In 1987, not long after his divorce, Robert met Sônia Braga, the fiery Brazilian actress known for her bold roles and vibrant personality. The two connected quickly, and their romance was electric. Sônia wasn't just beautiful. She had this passionate energy that seemed to match Robert's own intensity. They were together for less than a year, but their time together was far from ordinary. During this period, Robert was busy promoting the Milagro Beanfield War, a film he directed that explored the struggles of a small New Mexico town against greedy developers. While the movie didn't exactly smash the box office, it was rich with heart and purpose, two things Robert valued deeply. Being with Sônia was like a whirlwind, full of lively moments and shared passions. They even attended the Cannes Film Festival together, where they lit up the red carpet. Yet as much as they burned brightly, their relationship fizzled out just as quickly. By 1988, they had gone their separate ways. A couple of years later, while filming Havana in 1990, Robert's life took another unexpected turn. Enter Lena Olin, a stunning Swedish actress with piercing eyes and a magnetic charm. The chemistry between them wasn't just on screen, it spilled into real life. Watching their scenes together, you could feel that spark, that pull between two people who couldn't ignore what was happening. And if you were at the film's premiere, you might have noticed that their kiss wasn't just for the cameras, that one was real. Their romance lasted about a year, but it left a mark. Lena and Robert shared more than just a love affair. They shared moments of creativity and vulnerability. During this time, Robert was continuing to make bold choices in his career. Havana was set against the backdrop of Cuba during the Revolution, a film that felt deeply layered and political. Robert thrived in stories that had depth, and he poured that same intensity into his relationship with Lena. But like many Hollywood romances, it wasn't built to last. By 1991, they had parted ways, though their time together added another chapter to Robert's ongoing story of love and life. Fast forward to the mid-1990s, and Robert was once again showing the world that age didn't mean slowing down. He starred alongside Michelle Pfeiffer in Up Close and Personal, a romantic drama that had audiences swooning. The movie told the story of a seasoned journalist falling for a rising TV anchor, a tale of love, mentorship, and ambition. It's no surprise that Robert was still playing romantic leads at 58. With his signature charm and rugged good looks, he made it seem effortless. But off-screen, his love life continued to evolve. Around this time, Robert was linked to Cathy O'Rear, a costume designer nearly 2 decades his junior. Cathy wasn't part of the Hollywood spotlight, and maybe that's what Robert found so appealing. She was grounded, creative, and offered a sense of stability amidst the chaos of his career. Their relationship wasn't plastered across tabloids or splashed on magazine covers. It was quiet, private, and for a while exactly what Robert needed. During these years, Robert wasn't just acting. He was directing, producing, and continuing to shape the film industry. He followed up close and personal with the deeply emotional The Horse Whisperer in 1998. Not only did he direct the movie, but he also starred in it, playing a man who heals broken horses and, in the process, helps a family mend its own wounds. The film was a commercial hit, proving once again that Robert could captivate audiences, whether in front of or behind the camera. By now, Robert had established himself as more than just a Hollywood star. He was a cultural icon, a storyteller who wasn't afraid to take risks or dive into meaningful projects. His dedication to independent film through the Sundance Film Festival was changing the game, giving a platform to filmmakers who might otherwise never get their stories told. It's no wonder he was admired not just for his talent, but for his vision. But if there's one thing Robert's life shows, it's that love and work aren't always easy to balance. His relationships, whether with Sonia, Lena, or Kathy, reflected different chapters of his journey. Each woman brought something unique to his life, just as his films brought different sides of himself to the screen. Even his longtime co-star and friend Jane Fonda couldn't help but reflect on their connection over the years. Jane once admitted that she had been in love with Robert during their films together, like Barefoot in the Park and The Electric Horseman. She said he wasn't the easiest person to work with, often showing up late or in a bad mood. But there was something about him that kept her drawn to him. Their professional partnership spanned decades, and though it never turned romantic, it added a layer of complexity to Robert's story. As the 2000s approached, Robert continued to expand his career in ways that went beyond the silver screen. He directed The Legend of Bagger Vance, worked on environmental projects, and even ventured into producing socially conscious films like The Motorcycle Diaries. He was a man of many passions, always pushing forward, always evolving. Looking back on these relationships and moments, you start to see a pattern. Robert wasn't afraid to take risks, in love or in work. Whether it was diving into a romance with Sonia, exploring a connection with Lena, or finding comfort in Kathy's company, he lived fully. Each woman became part of his story, just as each film added a new layer to his legacy. Robert Redford's life took another beautiful turn when he met Sybil Sagers, a talented artist and environmental activist. Their meeting wasn't some Hollywood story. It was simple, genuine, and set against the natural beauty of his Sundance mountain resort. Sybil had come there in the late 1990s, not knowing much about Robert's fame. Imagine that. Someone meeting him without seeing him as a movie star first. That must have been refreshing for Robert, who spent so much of his life under the spotlight. She even admitted later that she rented a bunch of his movies before their first dinner just to catch up. But he didn't bring them up at all. That first meeting wasn't about fame or films. It was about two people connecting. Robert once said that her not knowing him as an actor made the relationship feel more human, more real. Over time, that connection deepened. And in 2009, they got married in a private ceremony in Hamburg, Germany, her hometown. Sybil is an artist, and her work reflects her love for nature and her passion for environmental issues. She paints, sketches, and even creates performance art that celebrates the earth while raising awareness about the need to protect it. Together, Robert and Sybil became a powerful team, working side by side as activists. In fact, they even co-founded a non-profit called The Way of the Rain, where Sybil's art and Robert's storytelling combined to promote environmental protection. Robert once said that Sybil gave him a whole new life, and you can see how their shared love for the environment brought them even closer. While Sybil became an important part of Robert's later life, his love for his children and grandchildren never wavered. He and his first wife, Lola Van Wagenen, had 4 children: Scott, Shauna, James, and Amy. Tragically, Scott passed away from SIDS when he was just 2 months old. a loss that left a permanent mark on Robert. In interviews, he's mentioned how the pain of losing Scott never truly went away. It shaped him, and perhaps it deepened the way he looked at life and family. His second son, James Redford, followed closely in his father's footsteps. James was an incredible filmmaker and environmental activist, using storytelling to shine a light on important issues. He directed documentaries and worked on projects that highlighted the urgent need for organ and tissue donation after going through 2 liver transplants himself. Together, James and Robert co-founded the Redford Center, a nonprofit focused on creating films that inspire environmental change. Losing James in 2020 to liver cancer was another heartbreaking moment for Robert. He described James as someone who was full of hope and always focused on making the better place. James left behind a legacy not just as a filmmaker, but as a father and a source of inspiration to those who knew him. Robert's grief for James was deep, but so was his pride in what his son accomplished during his life. Robert's 2 daughters, Shauna and Amy, also carried on his creative spirit. Shauna, born in 1960, became an artist herself. While she keeps a low profile, her work and family life reflect the same quiet strength her father has always admired. She married author Eric Schlosser, and they raised 2 children, Micah and Connor, who are now carving out their own paths. Amy, the youngest of the Redford children, is another creative powerhouse. She works as a filmmaker, director, and producer, blending her father's storytelling instincts with her own vision. Amy has directed feature films, music videos, and even short films, all while raising 3 daughters. Her work reflects her belief in amplifying women's voices and embracing the challenges of motherhood with creativity and determination. Robert's influence shines through in her ability to navigate both family and career with passion. And then there are the grandchildren. With 7 in total, Robert has found joy in watching the next generation grow. His grandson Dylan, for instance, has stepped into the family's legacy of filmmaking and even convinced Robert to lend his voice to a film called Omniboat, a fast boat fantasia. Can you picture Robert Redford voicing a dolphin? It's proof that he hasn't lost his sense of humor or his willingness to support his family's creative endeavors. Even as his family grew and evolved, Robert never stopped working. In the 2010s, he took on some of the most interesting roles of his career. In All Is Lost, he played a man stranded at sea in a film that had almost no dialogue. It was just him, the ocean, and the story of survival. Critics called it one of the best performances of his later career. He followed that with a surprising turn as the villain Alexander Pierce in Marvel's Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Fans loved seeing him as the mastermind behind Hydra, a far cry from the good guy roles he played earlier in his career. In 2018, Robert announced his retirement from acting after starring in The Old Man and the Gun, where he played a charming bank robber in what felt like a nod to his early roles in Butch Cassidy and The Sundance Kid. It was the perfect way to cap off his legendary acting career, full of wit, adventure, and a sense of nostalgia. But Robert later admitted that he regretted announcing his retirement, saying, "You never know," and sure enough, he made a brief return as Alexander Pierce in Avengers Endgame, proving that he still had a little more to give. Throughout it all, Robert's love for storytelling, whether through acting, directing, or producing, has remained constant. His career is filled with roles that have challenged, inspired, and entertained millions. And even in his personal life, he's never stopped being a storyteller. His partnerships, his work with his children, and his activism all tell the story of a man who's lived fully and passionately. Today, with Sabeel by his side, Robert continues to focus on the things that matter most: family, art, and the environment. He once said that life is about learning and growing, no matter your age. Looking at all he's accomplished, and all the lives he's touched, you can't help but feel inspired. Robert Redford isn't just a Hollywood legend. He's a father, a grandfather, an artist, and someone who never stopped believing in the power of stories to change the world. That's the story of Robert Redford, a life full of love, loss, and a relentless drive to make a difference. If you enjoyed this journey through his incredible life, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications. And hey, leave a comment below. What's your favorite Robert Redford role or memory? We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.